Wheelchair Rapunzel, also known as Alex Dacey, is a 29-year-old content creator from Chicago, Illinois, and she has recently found herself in some pretty big trouble, both with her large following of fans and the police, for some of the worst things that a person could do. But how did Alex go from a well-liked content creator to being as infamous as she is today? Well, if I'm being honest, it was a very slow process that took years, and it all began when she started her social media journey. Alex has created content on many platforms, some less reputable than others, and like I said, she's been doing this for a very long time, but she really started getting into it in 2020, mainly through Instagram and TikTok. In the beginning, most of Alex's content centered around her life as a disabled person. She has SMA type 2, a genetic condition that causes muscle weakness, and was very open with discussing the condition and her struggles with it on the internet. This would gain her a sizable following on Instagram and then TikTok, and it was in this newfound popularity that some problems began to emerge. Alex would start posting what I could only describe as thirst trap content, dressing very scantily and then saying she was going off to steal your man or do something extremely explicit to him. I'm all for being confident in yourself, but some of the stuff that she was doing was pretty extreme. She seemed to be developing this sense of entitlement, being really rude to people in public. A prime example would be one of her very first semi-viral videos. It shows her skipping the line at the club, and instead of asking people to move out of the way, she just starts running into them.
Disable bad bee and get into clubs first.
Gives a whole new meaning to running into someone at the club. This poor guy right here is minding his own business. I'm almost certain that he would have moved if she just asked, but it all speaks to the growing sense of entitlement that Alex was feeling, mainly driven by her growing social media following. Her image at the time was still good, and this led to some pretty amazing opportunities, like collaborations. Alex would go on a show called Dating Different, which covers people with disabilities dating. Well, Alex's appearance was interesting to say the least. We already know her story, but who was the guy she was meeting? That would be Daniel from El Salvador. He's a musician and seemed like an overall nice guy, but Alex would describe him as young and a little bland. The date was pretty awkward, but Alex would make it 10 times worse when she told a story about a recent hookup that she had.
I overshare my entire life.
Overshare something about your life with me right now. Something that's gonna make me uncomfortable.
Can't do it on camera.
Don't.
Like last week, I hooked up with a 51-year-old.
51?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was interesting.
Yeah, you get that elderly discount when you go to IHOP, so that's cool.
Surprisingly, it was this story that sealed the deal for Daniel, and almost immediately he asks if she wants to get out of there, go hang out somewhere more private. And the episode would end on a pretty positive note, the two looking pretty happy together, but I never saw mention of Daniel ever again, and this whole thing was eclipsed by a pretty big controversy that Alex was about to find herself in. The first of many. Wheelchair Rapunzel would get her first real taste of criticism after filming a woman in a bathroom. She was at some kind of restaurant or club, and there was a woman using the handicap accessible stalls. Well, Alex would wait outside of the stall door for the woman to come out, and then talk down to her about using the handicap stall, saying that larger stalls are not for able-bodied luxury. They're so disabled people can have equal access. But I want you to tell me in the comments what is worse. That this woman using the bathroom used the handicap stall maybe because the other ones were full, or that Wheelchair Rapunzel was ambushing people with cameras in the bathroom. Her commenters seemed to think that the latter was more extreme, and I've gotta agree, instead of maybe knocking on the handicap stall and making the person inside aware that you needed to use the restroom, you decide to wait out there and ambush her with a camera TMZ style. And this would be Alex's first major controversy. People thought that what she did there was wrong, but those feelings would grow even larger when she found herself in her second major controversy, and that's the creation of her OF. This ruffled a lot of feathers within her own community. Some people were enthused, while others noped out. They wanted nothing to do with this. The whole thing came in the middle of what I call her party girl era. Not that that's ever gonna truly stop, but this was back in the day when she was single and posting a lot of crazy content, and collaborating with some pretty unsavory individuals. Characters like Andrew Hahn, a fellow creator who Wheelchair Rapunzel was friends with, and a man accused of unspeakable crimes against children. And Alex has vehemently defended Andrew in the past, even living with him at one point. The Andrew Hahn situation was hard to find info on, but it stands out as the worst thing that Alex had done at the time, though all of it was about to be eclipsed by the incoming saga, and the arrival of her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Noah. I'll just let Noah describe to you how they met.
I was fresh out of rehab, and I was on the dating apps, Bumble, Tinder, all that, and I happened to match with Alex on Bumble. And honestly, it's kind of crazy because like her photo, it was like cropped to where you couldn't see. And I have nothing against disabled people, but like it had been something I hadn't been with in the past, and something I didn't know if I was necessarily comfortable being with. So like when I first clicked on her thing and matched with her, I didn't even know she was disabled. And then later I went through her photos, I found out. I talked to some buddies and they said, give it a shot, give her a shot. And so we talked for a few days, and then I ended up going over to her house. We hung out. The first red flag, though, was I was in recovery and she was drinking alcohol right in front of me.
Noah is Alex's on-again, off-again boyfriend. I believe that he's younger than Alex and from Florida, but what I do know about Noah is that he's been in and out of rehab. As you heard him say, him and Alex met as he was fresh out. She knew this and would continue to drink around him. This is something I haven't touched on much, but I think now's a great time. Wheelchair Rapunzel loves alcohol. From what I've heard, she drinks almost every day. So getting into a relationship with someone who's in recovery probably wasn't a great idea. And things only got worse when 4 months into their relationship, she would fall pregnant. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the real exploitation begins. Alex would post a metric ton of content about her pregnancy. These videos are some of her most highly viewed. This pregnancy also brought a number of problems for Alex and Noah. It was a high-risk pregnancy and people were extremely critical online. Noah had taken over as Alex's full-time caregiver. That is until he found himself back in rehab, getting out only a short while before his daughter was born. Alex made the decision to not put Noah on the birth certificate, and there seemed to be some real problems emerging in their relationship that had already been unstable for a long time. After the birth of her daughter, Ari, Alex would go back to drinking, and this time it was worse than ever.
Am I disabled? Yes. Do I have a black eye? Yes. Before we get into the black eye, alright, let's just get into black eye. So I was out downtown Chicago, just having some drinks, having some lunch. Ari was away with her grandparents for the weekend, so I'm like, alright, I'm gonna have a little mama's day. So during my pregnancy, my seatbelt broke, and I never fixed it, which was not a smart move. So I was leaving the restaurant, and I'm like, I'm gonna go home, I'm tipsy and feeling good, I'm having myself a good day. And apparently, I did not see a curb. And I basically face planted, and I severely hurt my shoulder. I have a black eye. And I also have some road rash.
They were also starting to receive visits from the police and CPS from people who were concerned about Alex or Nova even being capable of taking care of their daughter. Alex herself needed a full-time caregiver, and Noah was in and out of rehab. So people were concerned that the child was being left alone with Rapunzel. And as I said, it led to many CPS visits. But her public image was still generally positive, appearing on another show called My Extraordinary Family, which gave us a brief glimpse into Noah and Alex's life, or at least the way that they wanted it to appear. During the show, Noah seemed out of it. I'm pretty doubtful that he was sober. He just looked absolutely emotionless. But other than that, the appearance was uneventful. Just her discussing the internet trolls and the CPS visits. But as time went on, these would only grow more frequent, and the reason for these calls would grow increasingly disturbing. Like like this one from 2023, where she got a visit from the police for a reported indecent exposure.
The police were just here, and apparently someone online was trying to get me arrested or something. For indecent exposure, because I posted a photo yesterday of me and Ari on the driveway, and I was wearing a towel on my chair. You couldn't even see anything. You could see more at the beach.
I've really been wanting to avoid this subject, but I think now I've got to discuss it. Many of you are probably asking, what's with the towel? Well, the towel is what Alex uses in place of adult diapers. Lovingly referred to by the community as the tuna towel, Alex will use this towel to go to the bathroom. And the reason that the police visited her that day for indecent exposure is because she wasn't wearing any bottoms. She doesn't when she uses the towel, which is all the time. It's no wonder that she's getting police calls on her for indecent exposure. And trust me, this is only the beginning of her interactions with the police. But things were about to get a whole lot worse for wheelchair Rapunzel, because she was having even more problems with Noah, who eventually got Baker acted, which for those who don't know is an involuntary admission to a mental hospital for people who are suspected of having mental problems. So this left Alex without a caretaker. Enter Hannah, the Craigslist caretaker. You see, Alex doesn't like to go through the proper channels to find caretakers who are licensed or certified. She would much rather make a post to Craigslist looking for help, not only for her, but for her daughter, who she needs help from someone else to take care of. And there's a couple reasons why Alex does this. Number one is the towel. I don't think any medical professional would recommend something like that. Number two is the cost. She can get one from Craigslist much, much cheaper. And number three is probably the grossest out of all of them. It's that she doesn't allow her caretakers to use PPE when taking care of her hygiene needs. PPE is personal protective equipment, stuff like latex gloves. She will not allow her caretakers to use, claiming it's not natural enough. Here is Hannah revealing this in an interview after the end of her employment with Alex to an equally disgusted YouTuber.
She doesn't want her caregivers wearing PPE because it doesn't feel natural, or she feels offended by it. Is that true? Did you wear gloves when you did her things?
Oh gosh, no. I was like, why do you think I washed my hands like 10 times after I left? I was like,
so you weren't allowed to wear gloves?
No, I was scrubbing the crap out of my hands after I got off shift. I'm like, literally, I wouldn't even drive home. I literally was scrubbing crap out of my hands. Like,
so this is true. So did she say to you, no wearing PPE gloves?
Literally, she says, I like for it to be all natural. She's like,
it's no natural. There's no natural to that.
She doesn't like anybody wearing gloves. She likes everything to be natural, aired out, gloves wise. Like, literally, I was like, ugh.
No.
I'm not a caregiver.
A caregiver would never, like a licensed caregiver would never be like, yeah, no problem. I'll use my bare hands.
Hannah's time working for Alex was eventful. To my knowledge, it only lasted for a month, and things were okay until Alex's daughter's first birthday party. Her daughter was left unattended and began choking on a piece of plastic confetti. They were able to remove the confetti and the kid was okay, but Alex would blame Hannah for not watching Ari, and Hannah would say the same of Alex, claiming that she was far more interested in socializing with guests than spending time with her own daughter. This being the case wouldn't shock me. Alex uses her daughter in TikToks to drum up views, and when she's offline, she's just drinking. And Hannah would also say that Alex did a lot of it, almost every single day. But after leaving Alex's employment, Hannah would go on to expose her on Reddit, as well as the Dad Challenge podcast. So in response, Alex would dox Hannah and begin harassing members of her family. Hannah claims that she has no idea idea how Alex got their information, but believes that she possibly went through her phone while she had her back turned. Hannah would also claim that Rapunzel would refuse basic hygiene care, stuff like deodorant, and also that Noah was no longer in the home, that they had seemed to be broken up. And that ended up being true. Alex and Noah would break things off officially, but their living situation was still extremely complicated. After their breakup, wheelchair Rapunzel would continue to live in a home with Noah, paid for either completely or in part by his parents. I think that they were doing this so that their granddaughter could remain in Florida and they could still be a part of her life. Noah's parents were basically the people raising her, with him in and out of rehab and her drinking a lot. So Alex took advantage of this and let them fund her lifestyle in Florida. Without Noah being on the birth certificate, she has full custody of her daughter. So basically, Noah's parents either have to pay or they're not gonna see her. And they are the ones taking care of Ari while Rapunzel is out doing all of her partying. But despite all of this, Alex still decides to send her daughter to go live with her parents in Chicago. Alex's mother also seems to be extremely volatile, and a lot of people say that she too has a drinking problem.
In the house, hot, and I'm in the hot house.
No. Hot in the house and in the hot house.
I've also heard rumors of Alex's mom threatening her dad, sometimes with weapons, and that, with all the drinking, caused the CPS visits to follow the kid from Florida to Chicago. It's all just a horrible situation for a child to be in. At the time, it seemed like Noah was still in treatment, and Alex was out enjoying her life without her daughter. But that didn't last long, and eventually Ari came back to live with her mother, which was even more concerning than her living with Alex's parents. Wheelchair Rapunzel's drinking had gotten out of control, and she seemed unable to find another Craigslist caregiver, finding herself in yet another controversy when she revealed to the internet that one night she had to sleep in her chair because no one was available to put her to bed, meaning that she was alone all night with her daughter.
I have some rumors and things being said on the internet. When you're a single disabled mom, people love to come up with assumptions about like what the scenario is. So I'm here to hopefully enlighten you on the truth. The other day on my Instagram stories, I was talking about how hard it is to be disabled and need caregivers, and how hard it has been for me as a disabled person living in Florida to hire reliable caregivers that are responsible. And I had to sleep in my wheelchair one night, which was obviously awful. And I do have my 2-year-old daughter back here with me, but I want to clarify this. I'm going to make it so clear. Ari is never with me by myself. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. Including sleeping. Ari is too young for me to be able to be independent with her. There's a nah here. But it is what it is. And I don't take her safety lightly, and she is never with me by myself. Ever. You're sleeping in your wheelchair and she's in her crib, with the little tent that I have on her crib. She has that tent on there because my daughter is taller than average, and she has been crawling out of her crib since she was probably 1.5 years old.
The issue that a lot of people took with this is that Alex needs someone to help care for her, and that she is incapable of doing certain necessary things for her daughter, so it's extremely irresponsible to have them both left alone. And if she would just spend the time getting together 3 or 4 medical professionals instead of looking for one caregiver on Craigslist, scenarios like that wouldn't happen. But instead of learning her lesson, she found another person person off the internet with no official certifications. It's also around this time that we'd get an update from Noah from an interview that he did with the Dad Challenge podcast, and Noah would make some pretty damning accusations. He would allege that Alex uses her chair to hit people, running into them during arguments. He would also say that she is an alcoholic and that she doesn't pay taxes, but he would also allege something highly illegal, that Alex was committing some kind of disability fraud with the state of Illinois. Here's how Noah says she pulls it off.
But also, I did want to touch on, because you brought something up, the disability. Not many people know this, but she's getting money from the state of Illinois and she doesn't live there.
Ooh, that's
known
fraud.
as Social Security fraud. Yeah.
How is she pulling that off, though, by living in Florida and at the same time pulling in six figures? Because isn't it like if you're I don't know if you just get disability no matter what, even though you make $1 million, let's say, but like it sounds like she's not even claiming the money she's bringing in, and she's doing disability fraud against the state of Illinois, which is a big deal.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Josh. And the way she was doing it is she was having her mom be the caregiver, and the mom would be getting the money, and then she would give the money to Alex.
If true, this is highly illegal, both the fraud and the not paying of taxes. And if this is true, I have no idea how she's been getting away with this. She's been living in Florida for the past couple of years. I don't know how they wouldn't have caught on. Noah would also allege that Alex was posting content of them to her OF after they had broken up. This also seems like it could be illegal. He might have filmed those videos, but I don't know if he consented to them being released. Either way, it's terrible. I feel so bad for these two's child, not only having such a messy breakup, but making it all public online. But things get so much worse. Alex's recent crimes are some of the worst that anyone could commit. And we'll get there, but there is still much drama and controversy to go. As I stated earlier, Alex's drinking was out of control, posting incoherent, highly emotional TikToks with increasing frequency.
When it rains, it's fucking pouring. What's easy coming from you? Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm trying not to go off the deep end. Give me a reason. How do I zoom back out?
She was also once again meeting up with shady creators, one of them being a guy named Dylan. I guess Dylan was also interested in growing his social media platforms and went to hang out with Wheelchair Rapunzel one day, but when he showed up she was extremely intoxicated, and he decided to film her and put it on his Instagram. There's also the fact that he asked for money from Wheelchair Rapunzel, and that there might have been some threats sent to her by him. It's all just a mess, and she should have known better than to let such a shady character into her home. But she has a long track record with people like this, Andrew Hahn being even worse. So even though Dylan was up to some dubious things, she also has a share of the blame for inviting him into her home. Here's her explaining it.
You know, I don't want to just keep hiding. I'm sober-minded, I'm rational-minded, and I'm doing this whole thing where I'm just like very radically honest, and I take accountability for everything that's happened. So let's just go ahead and get into the reality of the entire Dylan situation. So I found out about Dylan, saw some of his videos. I thought he had an interesting look to him. At this point, yes, I was in full-blown addiction, drinking every day, very bad, like did not make very good decisions. So I decided, hey, let me invite him over and let's make some videos together, because I think they would do really well. Again, I was very intoxicated during this entire thought process. Before I had him over, I was giving him some like tips and tricks on like how to grow your platforms on OF and on TikTok. And, you know, as a creator, I am very passionate about trying to help other people that are trying to be a creator. To be honest with you guys, full transparency, I do not remember him being at my apartment at all, because I was that drunk. Like, I was blacked out. I don't remember any of it. And I have been in a very, very, very bad space. He was like, yeah, I'll definitely come over. pay me $50 to come over, and I did. So he comes over, and I still have these in my drafts. Me and him made a few videos, and I didn't end up posting them apparently, because my drunk mind was like, Alex, you are wasted, you look wasted, don't post these. And I think because I didn't post them, he was very, very mad. So that's when he decided to record me wasted to make me look bad online to get the views that he wanted.
This would be yet another case of wheelchair Rapunzel blaming her bad behavior on alcohol. It's common for her to make a mistake, say, oops, I was drinking, and then claim to make positive changes in the future, only to go right back to drinking and right back to the same terrible behavior. You will see this excuse again very soon, because despite what she was saying, I believe during this period she was still drinking heavily. These were also some pretty controversial days for her. She was fresh off of the Dylan incident, and now something even bigger was about to happen. Something that, in my opinion, was the beginning of the end for her social media career. Wheelchair Rapunzel had hired a Redditor as her caretaker. Once again, she had found a caretaker online, but this time it was a person who was very wise to her history, and who had been commenting on snark Reddit pages of hers for over a year. And after this caretaker was either fired or quit, she would expose Wheelchair Rapunzel on Reddit for her drinking, her improper hygiene, and something much, much worse. She would accuse Alex of luring a young boy into her home to give her a bath and put her to bed. And Alex would respond to the allegations put forward by her former caretaker, all of them except for that last one.
Let's hop into it. So as a disabled person, I have to hire caregivers to help me with my daily living tasks. Now, I've been doing this since I was 18 years old and I went to college. So I've been hiring people since, I was 18, so over 10 years. But since I moved to Florida, it has been a complete shit show. This is kind of like a bit of a long story, so I might have to make more videos, but essentially I met someone 5 months ago that I hired. But then I ended up going to Chicago for a few weeks to be with my daughter for the holidays. I had done several interviews, and I'm telling you, the caregiving situation has just been so challenging for me in Florida. It really wasn't like this in Chicago. And I was very, desperate for a caregiver. So she's been working for me for about, 2.5 months, something like that. And I had to let her go because she just wasn't able to fulfill the job that I hired her to do, amongst other things that I'm really not going to get into. And I come to find out that she originally was a Redditor on my snark page that was talking crap about me before I even hired her. So, like I said, had to let her go. I did it very professionally, in my opinion, as professionally as I could. And she did not receive it very well, so she decided to go online and start telling the internet a bunch of shit.
Contrary to how she made it sound in that video, the caretaker had thoroughly exposed Wheelchair Rapunzel. It turned out that the story regarding the young boy was true. Let me read you guys the police report, because it paints a pretty disgusting picture. I met with RP, who advised of a very unusual incident that occurred 4/13/25 involving her son. Father dropped him off around 7:30 p.m. She received a text that he was downstairs and awaited his arrival. She grew concerned when she noticed that he had not come to the apartment. She looked at his location and saw it was still in the building. Sent a few texts before she went down to look for her son. Finally received a text from her son stating that he was helping a disabled person enter their apartment, later identified as Alex. She was relieved that he was okay. When she asked when he was coming home, she did not respond and began to call, but got a message saying that he was still at apartment 308 helping. The mother became frustrated and went downstairs to see what was going on, and when she knocked on the door, her son opened it and they went home. It wasn't till later that her son told his mother what he had to do, which upset her and notified the authorities. Her son said that Alex asked if he could help her take a bath, which he obliged and helped her undress and enter the tub. He then waited until she was done and helped her out of the tub. He then had to make her bed and help her clothe herself. When his mom heard about this, she became upset as she mentioned what type of person would ask a minor to help them take a bath, etc. I then spoke to the son. It should be noted that he was alone and his mother was not within earshot of the conversation. He explained that when he got home around 7:30, he made his way to the elevator. While there, Alex also entered the elevator. She began making small talk, asking what the Florida public school system was like and how old he was. He replied and was then asked if he was able to assist her with getting into her apartment. He agreed and helped. While inside, he asked if that was all, and Alex asked him if he could assist her in taking a bath. He found the request rather unusual, but asked himself, what would Jesus do? With minor hesitation, he helped Alex undress and helped her into the tub. While there, he advised that he did not look as it would be disrespectful, but Alex made another unusual request when she asked if he could get her a beer. Confused by the request, as he told her that he is 13, he advised that he didn't want to make it seem that he was not being helpful. So he went down to the valet and asked, and they obviously did not give him the alcohol. When he went back up, he then helped her out of the tub and proceeded to help her get dressed for bed, make her bed, and put on a mask that assisted her with sleeping. At which point his mother was knocking at the door demanding that he go back home and that the woman should be ashamed as she asked a minor to do those things. I then spoke to Alex, who advised me that she did not mean any harm. She stated that she has had a lot of issues obtaining a state nurse who works around the clock. She advised that her roommate is usually there to help, but with her roommate's new engagement, she is almost never home. She stated that she saw this as an opportunity to have someone help her get to bed, so she took a chance to ask for help. She advised that the son was nice and helpful, and that she was intoxicated at the time, as she stated she came from the wharf. I'm assuming that's some kind of bar. She mentioned that her judgment should have been a lot better, but she needed someone to assist her with getting to bed. When questioned about the purchase of beer, she stated that she asked if he could use the Uber app to order a beer for her, and specifically her. But when the delivery arrived, it was ginger beer. Due to the nature of this incident, the Special Victims Unit detective was notified. Charges were eventually filed against Alex, but not quite yet. She was trying to brush this whole thing under the rug, acting like all the previous caretaker had exposed her for was her drinking, and not this absolutely disgusting crime that she committed. After all of this became public, I'm sure you can assume what happened. All of the goodwill that she had left evaporated. Her comments are now full of people referencing the incident and demanding that she address it, but instead of addressing it, Wheelchair Rapunzel had another plan: to divert and distract, because this is when she decided to fully break things off with Noah. She would accuse Noah of being an absolutely terrible spouse and father, accusing him of a bunch of terrible stuff, and I'm not gonna lie, Noah seems like a piece of work, doing almost nothing to improve the life of his daughter, just going in and out of rehab a bunch and making things very public and messy with Alex. But I just find the timing of her accusations so important. She decided now is the time to vilify Noah even further, and in my opinion, it was to distract people and muster the scraps of support that were left. She would open a GoFundMe claiming that it would help her find a new house away from Noah, and this GoFundMe would quickly break 5 figures, despite the horrible crimes that she was accused of. And this whole thing started due to an incident between Noah and Alex one day. Alex claimed that Noah pushed her, so she called the cops on him and had him taken away. Noah's parents asked Alex to please drop the charges, or she could no longer live at the home that they were helping pay for. Of course, Wheelchair Rapunzel refused, and she would have to move out of that house back to her parents in Chicago. Chicago, which is ironic given her GoFundMe said that she would be finding a new house with the money. Nope, it seems like she just took it and ran back home, where she can get her parents to care for her daughter along with herself, basically for free. During this time period, there were still people that were on the fence. Some still believed that Alex didn't do this, but then the police report that I read dropped, and it was almost impossible for people to defend her anymore. A lot of her diehard fans jumped ship. Her comments section was full of people criticizing her actions, actual support being few and far between. Realizing that the majority of the public were now aware of her impending felony charges, she started posting less and less. This wasn't just 1 or 2 videos, it was noticeable, and she still hadn't addressed what happened. Then she was informed that the mother would be pressing charges, and that she now had warrants out of Florida, so she flew from Chicago to Florida to turn herself in, something that the public also quickly became aware of. And I think it's due to the fact that everyone already knew that after turning herself in and returning to Chicago, she would finally release a couple of TikToks explaining her side of the situation.
So most of the internet knows by now that I was charged with a felony. So after I moved back to Illinois to my parents' house from Florida, I got a call from Broward Police Department, and I thought it was something regarding, Noah's case or something like that. But they informed me that there was a warrant out for my arrest, and I started having a full body panic attack. I asked them on what charge, and they told me lewd and lascivious. I believe that's how you say it. And I was like, is that a misdemeanor? And they said, no, it's a felony. The incident that occurred that is in question was regarding an incident that happened back at my apartment in Fort Lauderdale. At the time, my mental health was terrible. I was drinking a lot. So during this time, I really did not have a good caregiving situation. Selena was getting married, so she was really busy with that. I had another caregiver, and she wasn't always available. So there were a lot of times that I would go without care. It was hard to even get my basic needs met during this time. So I was drunk one night, came home to my apartment. I knew I wasn't going to have a caregiver to help me to bed that night. So I saw someone in my elevator in my building, and I asked them if they could help me. And they said yes. And obviously, we all know this is the incident where everyone's talking about the 13-year-old. But with being disabled, my intentions were purely caregiving. There was no sexual motivation whatsoever. I asked him to put me in a bathtub, so he did take off my dress, and he put me in the bathtub. I told this to the police. This is all public record as well. And to me, it wasn't weird because at the time, 1, I was drunk, and 2, to me, caregiving is clinical. It isn't, inherently sexual to see a naked body. But obviously, this kid was younger, and it was not a very good decision on my part, obviously. At that point, his mom had been calling, and he wasn't really answering. So I was like, no, just answer. You could tell her my unit number, have her come down, and I just want to thank her for you helping me in this really, really hard time that I'm going through right now with the lack of care. His mom did come down when I was in my bed, so I didn't even see her or anything in her face. But she just started yelling at me, and she was very, very upset. I didn't end up going to jail or getting processed the traditional way because they weren't equipped to handle someone with my type of disability.
Sadly, it seems like Wheelchair Rapunzel is just gonna get a slap on the wrist for this. If what she's saying is true and that she just got probation as well as a misdemeanor charge, that, in my opinion, is a gross miscarriage of justice. Her claims of it being clinical and not something nefarious hold absolutely no weight when you consider the first thing thing that she asked him in that elevator. Even before she took him back to her apartment, she knew he was underage. She asked him about school, and she knowingly went through with all of this. Being drunk or physically disabled is no excuse for actions like this. Alex has for a very long time used her disability as a shield against criticism. She would say that the CPS visits were all because people were ableist, and not because Noah is in and out of rehab, you might not have caretakers, and you're drinking a lot. This is an absolutely horrible thing for her to do. There are plenty of people with disabilities that are amazing parents. In my research doing this, I've seen a great many people talk about how great their parents were despite their challenges. It is not because of her disability that she is being criticized. It is because of the years of terrible behavior, and now the very real criminal charges that were levied against her. If you need proof, go and look at the comments under some of her videos before she got exposed time and time again. Most are overwhelmingly positive, but these days it's just people calling her out. And I also want to say that this video where she claims to address her felony charges is incomplete. She says nothing about the whole go buy me a beer debacle or other key parts of the story that make her look terrible. She is trying to control the narrative, but the truth has been set free. Only now she decides to make a video addressing all of this because the public is fully aware. We would have never heard a peep if she could have kept this under wraps. So it doesn't make me think that she's sorry. It doesn't make me think that she's trying to change, because time and time again you're going to be hit with an excuse. Either it was because I was drunk or because I had a lack of care. Absolutely irrelevant in the face of what she's done. And in my opinion, completely unforgivable. Whether she knows it or not, this is the end of her social media career. This is not something that you can wash off. People will be talking about the police report till the very last post. Support will continue to dry up until it's almost nothing, and the resentment for what she did will only grow, further fueling the end of Wheelchair Rapunzel.